Walt, it was a sleepy week in the autonomy markets, and lo and behold, GM exits the robotaxi business seemingly out of nowhere. We got unverified data from San Francisco that Waymo's gaining market share, and Uber's CFO is out there trying to quell all the speculation about robotaxis are the end of Uber. It's driving the stock down. He's out there trying to do it. Let's start today with Cruise. Wow, I didn't see it coming. I thought 25 was going to be a big year for them. What do you make of the move of GM pulling the plug?
I mean, it seems monumental. I would say that obviously Google didn't really perceive them as a major competitor. They've listed Tesla as the major competitor in autonomy, not Cruise. They've had their issues, clearly, in California, but it seemed like, things were back on track. And Grayson, I think I read on Bloomberg that weren't they literally supposed to launch driver out in Houston like next week? So how do you go from on the cusp of going driver out in one of your key markets to pulling the plug? How does that happen?
On purpose?
Obviously on purpose, but how? Like who makes that decision?
Mary Barra made the decision to kill Cruise. Point blank, Cruise was going driver out on Monday. David Welch from Bloomberg reported next week. I can tell you it was Monday. If you listen to the analyst call after the press release came out, Mary couldn't answer a question. She was nervous. And the reason why she made the decision, she was afraid they were going to have another incident, and she didn't want to have that incident. So she pulled the plug Wednesday before they could go drive her out Monday. The entire team was blindsided. Executives in the C-suite did not even know. That's how bad it is. And you want to talk about burning a bridge? Mary Barra and GM, they burnt a huge bridge with the autonomy community. Nobody wants to go work for GM after what they did by blindsiding Cruise.
I just don't understand this. If you're a company with an existential threat to, where the future of this industry is, whether it's EV or AV, and at the same time, you're seeing other companies like Tesla, get ascribed material valuation for the narrative of an autonomous robotaxi fleet. And Waymo, same thing, getting ascribed this value within the company, not different than SpaceX getting ascribed significant value for Starlink. So as a CEO of a company, you have to have a narrative of like, okay, this other business that we're struggling in, but don't worry, we're investing for the future. And we are listed among the top companies within autonomy that, by the way, others are putting these huge valuations in their sum of the parts to say why these other companies are worth so much. And we're just going to completely pull the plug right when we're about to provide a near-term data point, which is going driver out in a market. And let's put this in perspective. When Waymo, all they did was announce Miami for delivering in 2026 with employees in 2025, they could have said we're driverless and not taking customers in, some type of progress, build up some value within this thing, spit it out, sell it, do something with it, but just to actually kill this thing and then kill the entire narrative overnight, it's wild. It is wild.
They burnt $9 billion with a B, $9 billion. Let's look at classic mistakes that GM has made over the years. 2003, they killed the EV1. That same year when Tesla was founded, GM was ahead on EVs, they killed it. Huge mistake, they're paying the price today. They killed autonomy this week. They said, well, we're going to merge it into Super Cruise. We're going to build our own personally owned. No, you're not. You're not going to be able to hire the engineering talent. Was this another classic GM mistake 20 plus years later?
I don't even understand. I mean, what is your story? Who are you as a company? When your PR people are trying to put together, what is the narrative for GM? I don't even know what it is. And to a certain extent, you're saying, okay, you don't want to invest in safety. If you really want to up the ante, this was perceived as technology that at a minimum could help them with level 3 and improving the safety of their existing cars within this division. Do you not care about safety in a market where that is going to become more and more important? It's just, I don't know. What else did you learn about it? Grayson, you're close to all this stuff. How are the employees of Cruise taking this, and where are they going to flee to?
It went over extremely, extremely poorly. There is no love loss Mary Barra's public enemy number one to the Cruise employees. They worked extremely diligently hard. Mr. Steve Kenner built the safety case to go driverless. Mr. Kenner validated that the Cruise vehicle was safe, and he was lied to by GM. They stabbed him in the back. He's going to come back. He's going to hopefully stay in autonomy. What they did to Rob Grant, who was their chief government affairs officer, he put all the policies in place, built all the relationships with first responders, the governments to launch the technology. They stabbed him in the back. The employees they're over. They're leaving. They're not going to GM.
Well, Grayson, let me read you this tweet from Kyle Vogt, who I think was the CEO of this before departing. In case it was unclear before, it is clear now. GM are a bunch of dummies. And by the way, first reply that I see in my Twitter X is Elon Musk with a laughing emoji. Does Elon pick up some of these people? Are they, is this the type of engineering talent that would help Tesla in its journey? Where do these people go?
I don't know if they'll join Tesla. There's opportunities in the autonomy economy for these engineers to go get jobs, for certain officials in certain cases to go get jobs. Mr. Kenner, I believe, will stay in autonomy. Mr. Grant, I believe, will stay in autonomy. It's just, if you look at what Kyle said, they made a huge mistake, which if you look at what Jim Farley did with Argo, they shut Argo down. The big question that I have on all this, can Detroit ever build an autonomous vehicle? Because every time they try to, they end up screwing the founders and screwing people over. In Silicon Valley, and you and I both know, is a very small place. Nobody wants to go to work for Detroit. Did Detroit squander the opportunity to usher in autonomy?
Possibly. So what happened in Argo? How much money did they burn? And where did those people end up going, if anywhere?
Billions of dollars. A lot of the Argo team went with Brian Selesky to start Stack AV, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of SoftBank for autonomous trucking. It's not a startup. It's a wholly owned subsidiary. That's where a lot of those individuals went.
So do a lot of these people end up going to places like trucking or maybe autonomous delivery of goods and give up trying to compete, which appears to be the big three at the moment? Well, maybe big two: Waymo, Tesla, Wave, and we could talk about Zoox later as being kind of in that grouping. Are they going into sectors of this market, and we're now just down to a couple of major developers, obviously excluding the Chinese?
Potentially, the robotaxi market set. As you said, Mr. Sundar Pichai said, it's Tesla Waymo. The market for robotaxis is set. I do not see Zoox gaining significant market share, and lo and behold, bring on the hate mail. The whole autonomy is going vision only, and Elon was right that LiDAR is a crutch, and we're going to see that become true over the next decade.
So is this good or bad for the narrative or the concerns that exist at Uber and Lyft? If you have one less alternative as an autonomy fleet, is that good or bad? On one hand, you'd say, autonomy on its own doesn't work. And of course you need the partners of Uber and Lyft, although that's clearly not, I think, why this failed. The bad part would be if you're such a powerful platform like Uber and Lyft, then if Waymo goes alone and Tesla goes alone, then at least you'll have someone else out there in Cruise that you could theoretically partner with as an offset to de-risk some of the autonomy that you have there. Which do you believe weighs greater in the impact to Uber?
It's going to hurt Uber. With Cruise shutting down, it's going to hurt Uber. Uber needs operating systems. They need autonomous driving systems. And they were launching in Houston, full deployment, driver out on Uber. That's not happening. They should go bear hug Wave. They should go bear hug Neuro. They should do something to build out their ability of what they're going to do. And you're starting to see a lot of threads on X where individuals saying, well, I don't use Uber X anymore because its product is inconsistent. Autonomy solves that. Uber really needs to figure out their autonomy strategy. And this week at an investor conference, I'm going to quote this here. The Uber CFO said that he believes Uber is going to prove and deepen the partnership with Waymo by proving our ability to run the test fleet operations at a great scale, at a level of efficiency, and also drive utilization of vehicles at scale. I don't get that statement. It seems that they know that Waymo is driving away on their own, and they're trying to reassure the market, though, that we have this relationship. Uber's in fundamental trouble when it comes to autonomy. Lyft is in fundamental trouble.
When he's saying driving scale, he's just saying, I'm going to get you all the rides that you need, but by definition, if I go into a market and I'm having to wait 14 minutes, then I think that Uber's getting plenty of demand for the cars that are on the vehicles. And I would suspect that any new market that they launch, there's going to be plenty of demand, even with a 14-minute wait, or they get it down to 8 or 10 minutes or whatever it is. So that one, I don't think necessarily rings true, but we'll see.
No, and then you see as the Uber stock keeps selling off, there's massive concerns in the market over their strategy. And the question is, where are they going on road to autonomy? We'll be having the head of autonomy for Uber on, and we're going to ask him that question. What's the strategy? Partnerships are fine and dandy, but you and I both know it's the execution that matters. How are they going to execute it? The platform story that I was very bullish on with the algorithm, the CFO was also saying the same thing. I'm unsure because we're seeing the data from San Francisco, and this is unverified data from an Andreessen Horowitz investor, that Waymo continues to gain market share.
Grayson, you just buried the lead on what's great news. You are going to have the head of autonomy from Uber out defending themselves at a time when the stock is getting crushed. That is great timing. Good win for you. So that, I think everyone should be very carefully watching what they're going to say. What do you think he's going to say? Or should we just wait until it happens and then comment on it afterwards?
What fun is it to wait? Let's be honest. It's not fun to wait. I believe that he will come on and he will lay out their strategy of why they're doing this. And I will push back and saying, where's the execution? Show me something meaningful in the market. And I would love to get some clarity on when Waymo is going to launch in Atlanta on the Uber app. And I'd love to get clarity of when Austin will open up and what the economics of those deals look like.
It looks like I'm having an impact on you, Grayson, because, I listen to a lot of your podcasts and you're more the good cop persona on some of these podcasts, but now you are like geared up and ready to go because obviously there's concerns. But look, to your credit, you're also very bullish about the positioning that Uber had with the app and maybe the defensibility there. But clearly there's legitimate concerns that have emerged because we're clearly at an inflection point in the industry in terms of this stuff. But let's get to those stats that you were going to talk about. What is Andreessen saying in terms of what they think Waymo's share is?
So Alex Zimmerman, he's an investor at Andreessen Horowitz. He said as of November 2024, Waymo has a 22% market share of TNC rides in San Francisco, the same as Lyft, with Uber still controlling 55% of the market. Both Uber and Lyft lost low double-digit percentage points of market share, but it's more painful for Lyft. Lyft gave up a third of their market share. Uber lost a sixth.
Right. That's just math, given the relative size. But I don't know where this data comes from because I think Dara on the last earnings call said that the market share that Waymo had maybe was high single digits. So that's materially higher than what Uber thinks the share is. So I'm not sure where he's getting this data. To be honest, I don't live in San Francisco. That seems a little high to me in terms of where Waymo is today. So I don't know. I may call bullshit on that data. I don't know where it came from. That seems high. Not that it can't get there, right? But you need to add, obviously, more automobiles. And of course, to beat a dead horse, open up what's happening on the freeways and get those rides going. That'll help.
They need to. I believe Waymo is gaining market share. I don't think the numbers are that large. I think inside of that, you have a very loyal group of users, the power users that are consistently using the service, but I do not believe at this point it's that large. They only have 400 total vehicles according to the California Public Utilities Commission in all of California for two major markets. You're not going to reach that.
Okay. So we're agreed on that, but we'll see. We'll look more into those data. And if we get comments from Lyft or from Uber, and I've talked to Lyft about this, they've kind of said, well, we don't really look at the market as just downtown San Francisco. It's more the overall area. And they don't register anywhere on the market. I've seen those types of responses from companies in the past, notably the cable companies, like, wireless internet as a competitor. We barely notice them, all of a sudden the sub numbers start to go down, and then they start to brand it cell phone internet and try to denigrate it because it is having an impact. And then all of a sudden you're watching television and you're seeing them advertise against the autonomy. We will know, by the way, when autonomy is really hit, if you start to see ads against, hey, don't take that autonomous car. But obviously that would never happen because you can't go against something that you're actually integrating in your own market and is your future story. So you can't really market against Waymo in the markets where they're not your partner. You'd ultimately be hurting the market that's going to benefit you in the long term.
It's a complicated relationship at the end of the day. Uber does have a future in autonomy. I could see a situation where Wave partners with an OEM and powers those vehicles, perhaps exclusively on the Uber network, because Uber is going to have to build up the fleet and they're going to have to get creative. You just cannot rely on the partnership model that they're currently doing. They have to have, what is that tangible difference? That's what they really have to figure out, is what is the difference?
Maybe that's Uber's future. And Wave is well funded with SoftBank, but just try and push their development further, because then their system, meaning individual drivers, individual owners, maybe sub-fleets. You have a fleet with, a variety of OEMs that are funded. And then in that very fragmented market, you definitively would need someone like Uber and Lyft as a partner. Their problem is the leaders in autonomy today, which are, again, Waymo and Tesla, don't necessarily need to be fragmented. They can finance their own large fleets to compete directly with you. So maybe Uber's got to go and fucking triple down, pardon my French, with Wave and any other startups out there that are trying to build end-to-end solutions meant to partner with OEMs as opposed to making their own equipment. Which, by the way, means that Zoox, no matter what you personally believe about them, I think we differ there. I'm a little bit more optimistic in Zoox. I know we've gotten feedback from the industry that challenges my assumptions. Zoox would definitely be in the camp, I think, of the Waymo and Tesla, where it would be their own autonomous fleet, which would ultimately be a competitor to Uber and Lyft. And let's be clear, Zoox hasn't done a partnership with anybody.
They operated on their own. They start to eat away at market share in San Francisco and then Las Vegas. But how much longer will investors continue to allow Amazon to fund Zoox without offering any clarity on the business?
So right now, you're getting social media pictures of the toaster ovens kind of rolling down the street, and then you're going to get people riding them. And then if they launch a new market, so that again gets back to what I said with GM. Like, you can create a narrative. Everything is relative, right? You have Tesla making new all-time highs, in part because you have analysts that are doing some of the parts that will say, okay, the autonomous robotaxi thing is worth $1 trillion. So Amazon would be like, look, hey, we're over here. We may not be making any money, but if you think it's $1 trillion market opportunity and we only get 20% of that, here's the relative value. It's a narrative that's in there. And like, oh, you're going to attack us, Amazon? Should I play you all the clips of people that were saying, like, how can you not make money? Like the talk show host interviewing Bezos saying, like, how are you not making money and like generating any value? So I think they get a lot of rope, especially in this space, which is perceived to be a huge market opportunity. Now it's incumbent upon them and the people at Zoox to deliver. And like, the question is, do they have the right people at Zoox to deliver? We've heard questions about that. Does therefore someone outside of Zoox within Amazon start asking questions about Zoox and like, well, maybe we should be bringing teams of people over from Cruise or other, or other companies out there to help build some girth around whatever strategy that Zoox is executing on right now.
There's a lot of personnel issues inside of Zoox. We've heard it from internal employees. We've read it on Reddit. You read it on Glassdoor. There's a lot of public knowledge that Zoox is not exactly the best managed company out there. The other concern that I have for Zoox outside of the management is their stack is too heavy. It's too expensive. And the whole market is shifting to end-to-end vision only. And they have this very expensive toaster with tons of LiDARs and sensors on it. It's really, the question is, what are the economics of the toaster? And is it too expensive to scale? Even with Amazon subsidizing you can only subsidize something for so long. There has to be some sort of path to viable, profitable revenue.
Well, maybe it's Autonomy Markets asking these questions. It might not be the investors because they're happy about the overall narrative. But if there must be someone, Amazon is a well-run company in general. Can we agree upon that?
100%.
So maybe they can look at this, look at what's happening. Like, sometimes when there are large events that happen in a space, and I would say Cruise shutting down is a pretty large event. If Tesla finally turns on my FSD 13 or launches a trial in Palo Alto or wherever, these are other large events. Maybe that sparks the internal conversation at Amazon. Amazon, who are managing what's happening at Zoox to say, like, what's going on here? And do we need to put new management in there? And as a result, Grayson, management matters. Like a good coach for a football team matters. I think there's enough momentum there that if maybe you change management or supplant management or incentivize them to bring in teams underneath the existing management team, maybe it's not too late for them to kind of get in the mix. And I think, there's companies out there that would be supportive. Maybe they're the ones that have to partner with Uber and Lyft and say, we can't go it alone, which many people think Tesla and Waymo will be. Maybe we'll be the guys to partner and somehow get some benefit that way.
It'd be very, very interesting if Amazon Zoox did an exclusive deal with Lyft. That could get very interesting, and then scale that together. Then Risher would really, truly get his big autonomy win. That would be interesting, and then they go all in on it. What do they have to lose at this point?
Yeah, I mean, yes, it feels like something has to change. Now, we could be completely wrong. They could be like, look, Tortoise wins the race. It's 2030. That before any of this is going to happen, if we continue to do our thing, we're ultimately going to get there. But look, David Risher did work at Amazon. For those that don't know that, he made a lot of money at Amazon. He certainly has those relationships. That stuff does matter, personal relationships at companies. So I wouldn't rule that out. Maybe it's just him. They're having a dinner end of the year. Hey, how things going over here? And David's like, well, we're not hearing great things about what's going on over at Zoox, or we think you guys should be further on, or we need you because we're worried about the existential threat of Waymo and Tesla. Maybe we should try and figure out something together to advance these things.
They're going to have to figure out something. Elon tweeted this week that Tesla's going FSD unsupervised next year. And you see that they're hiring remote operators to manage the vehicles in tricky situations. If FSD unsupervised comes next year, along with Cybercab, and this thing starts scaling, and I'm inside of Amazon on a strategic management team or in strategy, I'm asking a lot of questions, because here's the kicker on all this. The Cybercab has 50% less parts than the Model 3. It was engineered for profitability. The Zoox toaster was over-engineered.
Yes, any industry events certainly, I think, should get leadership and those that are overseeing leadership to start asking additional questions. Grayson, the other thing is, it's end of the year, events happen, companies go and whiteboard things. You've got a new president, who knows, with tariffs and everything else. Like, there's a lot of things that people try and strategize, like, what is our future? There's another company I'm not as familiar with. I think you're a little bit closer to this, but Daimler, would they stop funding Torc now that GM is funding Cruise? Is this like one of the domino type effects that happen across the industry?
I could see it. It gives them cover. If you think about it, if I'm sitting in the CFO, because it's been an albatross around their neck, the European slowdown that we've seen with trucking is pretty large and substantial. And why would they want to keep funding this to build their own program when they can just go partner? They have a 50+% market share for the Freightliner. Why do they want to have their own internal program? I'm really starting to question the burn of $1 billion a year.
So let's back up a little bit for the investors that are watching this. Run us through the history of the Daimler and Torc relationship.
The history goes back to Daimler acquired, I've been told, north of 87, 90+%. They control the board, they control the company. And the relationship between Daimler and Torc has been extremely complicated, because Torc, in every press release, an independent subsidiary, not a subsidiary of Daimler. It's this whole branding where it's branded Torc Robotics. It's not branded Daimler. The Torc brand, with all due respect, has no value in the market. It's the Daimler truck brand. So they're a subsidiary of there. And they built their first original stack, and they're out of Blacksburg, Virginia. They built their whole first stack on the Rawson and robotics stack. They recently rebuilt their stack as an AI first stack. I was in the robotic version of the truck, and it performed very well. I just don't know.
So we're talking about 18-wheelers. You're saying Torc is providing the technology for the big trucks.
They're building the 18-wheelers, yes. I just don't know if it's the right path. And there's been a lot of speculation in the industry that the main reason why Daimler acquired Torc, because nobody wanted to poach talents from Blacksburg, Virginia. If they were a Silicon Valley company, could have. Apple actually looked at acquiring Torc before Daimler bought them, interestingly enough, and they were going to merge them into the Project Titan. But Apple wanted to get rid of the Torc name. The Torquers, as they call themselves, did not want to get rid of the name. Daimler gave them everything they wanted at the end of the day.
But why at this point do you think Daimler would want to give up on this relationship? Is it that other companies within the space have been, advancing their product more so? Is it that that they're reevaluating whether you would actually ever want to own the technology and maybe just partner with several technology partners, at which point they could basically spin it out or just keep one that they own and then still deal with other companies? Why now?
Their European business is hurting. Their business is in financial not great condition, and it's $1 billion a year spend.
It's just burning too much money.
It's burning too much money. And I'm going to give your partner at Lightshed, Rich Greenfield, a shout out, where he used the great term content arms dealer, where you want to be the arms dealer for all this content. Freightliner could be the arms dealer because they have the platform, license it, give access to every developer, and corner the market that way without having to spend all this money to do it, because they have the redundant Cascadia.
What other OEMs out there in the trucking world or in the auto world have ownership of the autonomy technology?
So you have PACCAR, you have Traton, you have Volvo Autonomous Solutions. Traton has a public partnership with Plus that's operating in San Antonio right now, and they also have a facility operating in Sweden. So that goes over to the Traton, which owns Navistar and Scania. PACCAR.
You're dumping tons of names on us. Let's keep it simple. In those three, do you think any of them are self-supporting? Are they all basically burning cash within their OEM relationship? That the OEMs are effectively still, funding the development of this?
The common denominator with OEMs not named Daimler, they don't have their own in-house program like that. They do partnerships. And so they're not having to fund all this $1 billion+ of R&D research.
Okay, so Daimler, you're saying, is unique in terms of they're the only ones that own it and they're primarily funding it. The rest are just partnerships.
Correct. Some are deeper, more integrated partnerships. Aurora is powering the Volvo VNL through a partnership. There is news coming from PACCAR before the end of the year on 2 new partnerships that will become public before the end of the year. When those do, we'll talk about those.
So Daimler was unique. So they're stuck out there. They're burning cash. They saw what another major OEM, in this case GM, did. So yeah, I think your logic makes sense that should be someone internally should be asking the question. Same question as before, what are we doing here? What's the value of being, if everyone else is doing partnerships, whether it's autos or trucks, what are we doing here? Right?
It's a question.
So how does that, so okay, then what's your view on the Torc group in terms of, again, is this just a shutdown? Is this a spin out? Is this a sale? Is this, how does this manifest itself?
There's not enough revenue to sustain on its own. They would have to get outside capital to sustain. GM was unsuccessful in getting outside capital for Cruise, which was another one of the reasons why it shut down, because they didn't control the narrative.
What about someone else that's out there, whether it's Aurora or others, that, wouldn't mind having additional OEM partners, and Daimler wants to get rid of this thing. So they say, okay, you're going to be our partner, but, somehow they do an acqui-hire and send people over to an existing trucking development? Or is it just that there's such independent paths that taking a whole new set of people and adding them into the mix is just not what you want? I mean, I technically, when we talk to our portfolio companies, smaller teams are typically better. Adding more people to problems, especially when it comes to this, isn't always the best way to get things done.
It could happen. Unfortunately, I don't see that path happening. I think you're going to have a GM Cruise situation with Torc Daimler where they just simply shut it down unless they can raise outside capital. And if you look at the amount of capital they were going to need, you got to go to a sovereign, because it's the pure amount of money that it's burning, or a Tiger Global, one of these large firms that's willing to write large checks. I don't really see an acqui-hire happening with Torc. The companies now that are, the Kodiaks are lean, the Auroras are large, and I don't really see these companies increasing their headcount.
It's kind of a wild situation, whether it's Cruise or Torc or whatever, that there's just not a market for absorption in there. But I guess that's the state of the world, right? Or the state of the market right now, in terms of you just can't fund development forever. And this just shows the power of these large tech companies that can, which brings us back again to Zoox, is they've got the checkbook and, possibly the will to do that. I mean, it's the other thing that can happen. I don't see it happening, is Amazon's like, I really want to be in this business. We back the wrong horse, drop one and bring another one in. Bring Cruise in and then drop Zoox, or bring Cruise in as a separate thing and say, oh, well, we had Zoox for the toaster ovens, but we're doing Cruise for cars, and that's a different part of our business.
The stacks aren't compatible. I was always shocked.
Yeah, but you can have different businesses. It's not terrible to have two separate businesses. Let them compete it out for a year. I mean, I guess as I'm saying this, that's when investors would start to revolt. Like, what are you guys doing? Like, it's one thing to have Zoox and burning whatever cash you're burning there, but now you're going to burn more money at Cruise. Like, I think it would have to be a full rip and replace, out with one, in with the second.
I'm still baffled why Amazon bought Zoox. There's no clear synergies. It fits into their existing business
That you know about. There could be some things on the delivery side.
but the vehicle was not built for delivery. I always thought Amazon would go and acquire an autonomous trucking company because they move more packages and goods than pretty much anybody. That makes sense. If Daimler shuts down Torc, would Amazon buy Torc?
See, Torc's one that it wouldn't have to be a rip and replace, meaning out with Zoox, in with Torc. Torc, you could be like, oh, well, Torc is really a different market. I think if you basically bought Cruise, you'd probably have to get rid of Zoox.
Yes, but trucking would complement it, would give you a twofold approach. But then if I'm an investor, well, you look at Aurora, they have the car and the truck on the same singular platform. Then you're building two autonomy stacks, you're doubling your costs. So it's really not a path forward there. Or does a Walmart step up and do something? They move a lot of goods. Their e-commerce business is booming based on their last earnings. Could they make a move since they looked at previously acquiring Zoox?
Possible. Technology forward company. Things are going really well for them, for sure. Sometimes when things are going too well, you don't necessarily need to upset the apple cart and create a new narrative. But again, like I said before, if this narrative is something that analysts want to put trillion-dollar valuations on, then maybe add it to the mix. I think it's a corporate culture there that is probably less willing to eat losses for a period of time. But, maybe the value of Cruise is such that it's a little bit closer to commercialization than perhaps where Zoox is today.
I don't know. I don't really see Cruise going anywhere. The talent's going to flee at the end of the day. Going back to Walmart, don't forget, James Reed's got a very big position there, and he's the former COO of Kodiak. He's at Walmart. So you have an individual with autonomous trucking experience there. So perhaps that, or it'll be very interesting to see if anybody does acquire Torc, if Daimler decides to shut it down. And I still remain unconvinced in strategy, and it becomes a really interesting parlor game. And just looking at parlor games, there's a betting market called Kashashi now, and there's a 37% chance that Tesla's going to launch the Cybercab in 2026. What do you think about that?
I think it's great that we have betting markets. I'm not sure if I'm a buyer or a seller at 27 cents. It feels like it's appropriately valued given some of the promises that Elon has made historically relative to what's been delivered in that time frame. So I feel like the market's pretty efficient on that one. Are you a buyer or seller at 27 cents?
I'd buy at 27 cents. Yeah, I'd buy at 27 cents. They're going to do it.
Well, that's because you're a Tesla stan.
I'm not a Tesla stan.
I love saying that just because it gets you so upset.
Go on X. The prophecy has been fulfilled. 42069. You smoke joints and you do extracurricular activities. And I'm going to leave that to people's imaginations.
Can we just briefly go back to the Daimler thing? I was wondering, like, if Daimler did kill Torc, isn't that very good for Aurora in terms of, just like, hey, is someone out there that wanted to compete with us? Not that they're the sole beneficiary, but it is a public company, and some of these other companies that we talk about in that space are not. That like, okay, I'm the survivor, this is the way to go. And yeah, Daimler, they can say like, well, we can't say anything now, but clearly, we would be a great partner for them going forward. That would theoretically be a very positive catalyst for that company, no?
For Aurora, it would be an extremely positive catalyst. For the rest of the industry, it would start more consolidation. I'm not sure if it'd be healthy for the rest of the industry, but for Aurora, it'd be extremely healthy, yes.
What do you got for next week? Grayson? I know you like to ask me that question, so I'm right back at you. What's on tap in the world of autonomy in the week before Christmas?
The week before Christmas? Well, we know that there's not coal on tap. I've been a good guy this year. You've been a good guy, so there's no coal coming. Really, what we're looking for is to see what the fallout is from GM Cruise and as more details emerge. We're really kind of looking for that. I am looking for perhaps 1 or 2 year-end partner announcements that are coming.
End of the year data, end of the year news dumps of partnerships. Nah, that's never gonna. No, we're past the news cycle, I think. You think end of the year?
No, we're not.
Okay.
There's something coming. Tune into Autonomy Markets because I tell you, there's something coming.
Here's what I think. I'm going to see Grayson. He's going to be in his Christmas jammies. He's going to run downstairs before anyone else is awake. The tree is going to be lit. He's going to go underneath. He's going to unwrap a present. And what he hopes is in that present is that Elon Musk has said, I have activated FSD 13 in your Tesla. Go have a nice Christmas drive for me. That is the Christmas present that I think that we should hope to look forward for you and also for myself to trial FSD 13 for Christmas. Maybe that's going to be the big thing. Everyone's Tesla is going to light up and start singing Christmas carols and saying you can now do FSD 13 whether you've subscribed for it or not.
That would be amazing. I'd have to keep the champagne on ice because immediately I'm getting in the car and I'm going testing. The future is bright. The future is autonomous. The future is funding autonomy. Walt, until next week.